Module 3, Defining Co-Teaching. The philosophy, what children can do together today, they can do alone tomorrow. Lev Vygotsky. Cooperative learning are students working together to accomplish shared learning goals and maximize their own and their group mates' achievement. Words matter. We need to make sure we are all speaking the same language. Mainstreaming is not the same as inclusion. Collaboration is not the same as co-teaching. Carob is not the same as chocolate. Carob is a tropical pod that contains a sweet edible pulp and inedible seeds. After drying, the pulp is roasted and ground into a powder that resembles cocoa powder, but does not have the same flavor and texture of chocolate. Carob can be healthier than cocoa powder, but it can't compete with the flavor of cocoa and chocolate. Carob is actually sweeter than cocoa powder, but it can't compete with the flavor of chocolate. How many chocolate lovers would rather have imitation chocolate instead of the real thing? We need to provide our students with the real thing. Words really do matter. Cooperative learning. Students working together to accomplish shared learning goals and maximize their own and their group mates' achievement. Parity. Both teachers having equal responsibility of the learning for all students. Least restrictive environment. A legal mandate that students with disabilities be educated to the greatest extent possible with their general education peers. Team teaching. A method of co-instruction by which both educators co-facilitate a lesson at the same time. Co-teaching. When two or more educators co-plan, co-instruct, co-assess a group of students with diverse needs in the same gen ed classroom. Regular education initiative. The first major movement to put all children in the gen ed classroom. Mainstreaming. The placement of students with disabilities into gen ed classes, usually part-time and without any additional services. Collaboration. A style of interaction in which two or more professionals work together towards a common goal. Inclusion. A philosophy that states students with disabilities have the right to receive their education in a general ed classroom with necessary supports and services provided in that setting. Co-teaching versus inclusion. Defining co-teaching. It's a service delivery option for providing special education or related services to students with disabilities or other special needs students while they remain in their general education classes. Co-teaching occurs when two or more professionals jointly deliver substantive instruction to a diverse, blended group of students in a single physical space. Inclusion. Inclusion, on the other hand, is simply a philosophy in which all students, regardless of disability, are in the same classroom. Therefore, as we move toward more inclusive classrooms, one approach to meet the needs of all students within that classroom is to provide the co-teaching model of instruction. Inclusion is not the same thing as co-teaching. Inclusion is a philosophy. Co-teaching is a model of instruction that can be used in an inclusive classroom. At this time, NCDPI does not have a formal definition of inclusive settings. Inclusion provides the opportunity for all students with the full range of disabilities to be educated in age-appropriate classes in their home school and to be full participants in all aspects of the total school day. Co-teaching framework in our school. This is now a good time to assess the needs of the group in the areas of building a co-teaching plan for implementation. Evaluate whether your school has co-teaching or inclusive practices in place. What are the barriers of effective co-teaching? Think about what the barriers are. Typically, it's time to plan and enough time to meet the needs of all students. These two barriers are mentioned most frequently. Allow time to think about each barrier, and while all of these items are important, continue to focus on the barriers of time to plan and time for effective instructional practices. Administrators often indicate resources and funding as barriers to this as well. Co-teaching. What it is, what it is not. This section will help you develop an understanding of what co-teaching is and is not. Many times when two certified educators are placed in the same classroom with the expectations that co-teaching is or will occur, and no professional learning is offered, the results are a classroom that is led by the regular education teacher, and the special educator is just acting as an assistant in that classroom. Two or more professionals, what it is and what it is not. What it is having two credentialed professionals indicates that co-teachers are peers having equivalent credentials and thus can truly be partners in the instructional effort. The general education curriculum provides the framework with the flexibility of being modifiable for students who require it. What it is not. Even if volunteers or paraprofessionals have had professional preparation to co-teach, it is not an appropriate role expectation for them. This is not to say that paraprofessionals do not have important classroom roles. They should just not be asked to fulfill responsibilities of certified staff. Jointly deliver substantive instruction. What it is. Both professionals must coordinate and deliver substantive instruction and ensure that both teachers have an active role. Co-teachers should work to ensure that their instructional strategies engage all students in ways that are not possible when only one teacher is present. What it is not. To jointly deliver instruction, teachers must do more than just be present in the same class at the same time. General education teachers are not solely responsible for planning and delivering instruction while the other special educator circulates the room. Co-teaching should not always be lecture and turn-taking. Both teachers should be active instructors in the class, often at the same time. Diverse and blended group of students. What it is not. What it is not is students with disabilities should not be in one part of the classroom or along the fringes, even those practices are well-intentioned. What it is not. Each teacher taking their group of students to a designated section of the classroom or another classroom to provide instruction on a regular basis. What it is, teachers responding effectively to diverse needs, and it is a way to lower the student-teacher ratio and an expansion of professional expertise that can be applied to student need. Shared classroom space. What it is not. What it is not. Although small groups of students may occasionally be taken to a separate location for a specific purpose and limited time, co-teaching should generally take place in a single environment, separating it from the practice of regrouping for pull-out programs. Planning together, but each teacher instructing separate groups in separate locations. What it is, co-teachers instructing in the same physical space. Take a look, then discuss. What is this model or example of co-teaching? Why or why not? Levels of collaborative relationships. Again, just putting two adults into a classroom together to coexist does not constitute co-teaching. Only when all three components of co-planning, co-instructing, and co-assessing exist do we have a true co-teacher relationship. Roles and responsibilities. General education teacher. Joint responsibility. Parity. Specialized content knowledge and skill. Combine knowledge with special education teacher. Collaborate. The general education teacher has a joint responsibility with the special educator in the education of all students in the classroom. It is the general educator's responsibility to provide specialized content knowledge and skill within the curricular area for all students. The general education teacher should also combine his or her content knowledge with the specialized knowledge of the special education teacher. It is the joint responsibility of both parties to collaborate and assess the students, prepare differentiated lessons, and evaluate the students. The roles and responsibilities of the special education teacher. Identify learning needs and adapt the curriculum. Provide access, i.e. UDO. Ensure use of evidence-based practices. Joint responsibility. Parity. The special education teacher brings expertise in identifying students' unique learning needs and adapting the curriculum and instruction. The role of the special education teacher is to adapt the instruction in order to provide access for students with disabilities to a curriculum that has been mapped out by the general education teacher, utilizing universal design for learning. The special education teacher should see that evidence-based practices are infused into the general education curriculum and ensure that these practices are effective and are matched to the needs of students with disabilities. Roles and responsibilities of administrators. Know what co-teaching is and when it is needed. Act as a matchmaker. Prioritize scheduling. Facilitate common planning. Monitor. Administrators play a crucial role in the implementation of co-teaching. There are 5 keys any administrator should know to create and maintain effective co-teaching. These keys are identified as 1. Know what co-teaching is and when it is needed. 2. Understanding that co-teaching is a professional marriage and you are the matchmaker. 3. Scheduling is a priority. Co-teaching schedules cannot simply be plugged into the computer, but they must be looked at first. 4. Common planning time is a must. Don't worry, we will offer some creative solutions for this. And 5. Monitor success, give feedback, and ensure evidence-based practices. Role clarity. Guess who? The objective of this slide is to understand the roles and responsibilities for those involved in co-teaching. Special education teacher, general education teacher, and administrator. This should summarize what we have just discussed. The general education instructor brings specific content knowledge to the classroom. General education instructor and special education instructor and administrator, who's responsible for the education of all students in the classroom. Administrators, who is the matchmaker for the co-teaching partnership. Special education instructor, who brings the knowledge of how to adapt the instruction in order to provide access for students with disabilities in the curriculum. And general education instructor and special education instructor, who is responsible for assessing students and differentiating lesson plans. Teamwork. Think about the importance of teamwork, especially as it relates to co-teaching. Co-planning. Planning together. Have common planning periods, weekly lunch meetings, before or after school meetings, co-sponsoring a school activity or group, in and out boxes for ongoing communication, administrative coverage on a monthly basis, collaborative planning time on staff development, early release days, swapping coverage during other teachers' planning periods, journaling notebook back and forth. We will go into more detail about different options for co-planning later in the training. This slide is just to help you begin to think about planning as a vital component of true co-teaching that must be addressed in order to get the outcomes for students that we want to see in co-taught classrooms. Co-assessing. Remember, one size does not fit all. It is essential to find out what works with whom, by whom, and in what context. Assessing students can help with that. Design framework for co-teacher teams should include empathy with learner, defining observable actions in a measurable way. What's the goal? Planning backward. Ideate what works, strategies, EBP, or practice-based evidence, iterations of past lessons and strategy implementation, prototype solutions to barriers, reflection and evaluation with teaching practices and learner responses. Plan, do, study, act cycle. Co-assessing. Decide on an ongoing progress monitoring or assessment tool. Develop teacher-made assessments with modified versions as needed. Decide on a time frame to progress monitor. Share grading responsibility. Collect data on academics, behavior, social, and study skills. Collect and record data. Have students chart or graph their progress in your class. Monitor progress toward IEP goals and objectives. Make instructional decisions based on the data from all assessments. Jointly determine final grades for students. Celebrate even the small successes. Remember, begin with the end in mind. EC teachers assess and teach to the needs. Regular ed teachers teach and then assess. We need to begin, once again, with the end in mind. Barrier, common malpractice. Due to lack of preparedness and common planning time, inadequate versions of co-teaching models have been implemented, raising fidelity issues. Administrators must be able to support teachers with professional learning opportunities and coaching in order to begin to have co-taught classrooms that are taught with fidelity. Many teachers do not have instruction on co-teaching in their pre-service programs, and their first experience is typically when they are placed on a co-teaching team. Breaking down the barriers. Strategy. Morawski recommended training in the various effective co-teaching approaches to avoid the common malpractice of the EC teacher serving as a teaching assistant. 2006.